Today we are going to be looking at the properties of exponential functions. Here we started with y equals b to the x. This is our parent function, so where our exponentials start, where they begin, and then they can change from there. They can move left or right, up and down. They have different transformations. So when we're working with transformations, our equation will look like this. Y equals a times b to the x minus h plus k. So let's look at the different parts. The a, for it to stretch, would mean that a is bigger than 1. If a is bigger than 0 but less than 1, it's going to shrink. And when a is negative, it's going to reflect over the x-axis. So a translation, h, so our value up here with our x, is either going to move to the left or it's going to move to the right. And it's always going to be the opposite. So if it's positive, it'll move left. If it's negative, it's going to shift right. And then our vertical, our up and down movement, is our k, which is right here in our function. And if it's going up, it means k is positive. And if it's shifting down, k is negative. So let's look at some graphs. Let's first graph this one, which would be our parent function. So if we set up our table to find our numbers, we can find our coordinates. If we plug in a -3, so 0.5 to the -3 is 8. 0.5 to the -2 is 4. 0.5 to the -1 is 2. 0.5 to the 0 power is 1. 0.5 to the first power is 0.5. 0.5 to the second power is 0.25. And 0.5 to the third power is 0.125. You can always use your calculator to check my work and see how I got those numbers as well. So let's graph. We have -3, 8, -2, 4, -1, 2, 0, 1, 1.5, 2, a little bit lower. So our exponential function looks like this. And our asymptote, what it's getting close to but has never crossed, is at y equals 0. So now let's look and graph our second function that we have right here. So we want to find all of our coordinates so we can get a good idea of what this function will look like. So if we plug in a -3, -3 plus 2 is a -1, so 0.5 to the -1 minus 3 is -1. And if we plug in a -2 in for x, we're going to end up with a -2. If we plug in a -1, it's going to be a -2.5. We plug in a 0 for x, we end up with a -2.75. 1, -2.875. If we plug in 2, it's 0.0625, 0.03125. The biggest thing when you make sure when you plug these in, first you're doing the exponents, putting the 0.5 to the exponent, and then subtracting 3 is last. So if we graph, we're at -3, -1, -2, -2, -1, -2.5, 0, there, getting closer. So this exponential is getting close to but never touching at y equals a -3, which we can find from our equation, which was our translation of k, or translation by k. Okay, let's look at this second graph. We have our x and our y. So -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So first we can plug in -2, so 2 to the -2 power and then multiply that by a -1 and add 1, 0.875. Show you what we're doing on this one. So if we do 2 to the negative first power, times that by a -1 and add 1, end up with 0.75. Oh, this was 0.75. This was 0.5. 2 to the 0 power times by -1 plus 1 is 0. 2 to the first power times by that -1 plus 1, so -1. 2 to the second power times by -1 plus 1 is -3. And 2 to the third power times by -1 plus 1, -7. So that's the graph. We have -2 and 0.75, -1, 0.5, 0, 0, 1, -1, 2, -3, 3, -7. So we have our exponential in this way. It's an asymptote at y equals 1, which our k was a +1.